I'm Julia Fisher. Welcome to this week's edition of The Olive Tree, bringing you another story direct from Israel to help understand life for believers there today. Recently, we visited Netanya, a city just north of Tel Aviv. Evan Thomas is a Jewish believer and pastor of a congregation there. Stuart Fisher spoke to him and began by asking him, how did it all start?
This congregation we call Beit Asaf, the House of Asaf, established now already from the early 1980s. It's a congregation that grew from a little handful in a house congregational framework to a community of probably around about 220 souls, and a great diversity of immigrants and the children of immigrants that were born here. A lot come from the former Soviet Union, because Netanya was one of those staging posts for people, and when they arrived, integrated here, and we did a lot of outreach amongst those people coming. And so the congregation has grown very healthily. It is a broad mixture of children, of course, young families, youth, young adults, and even elderly as well. So we have a good, healthy diversity. We have a big emphasis on helping people to bring their Messianic faith into this context, which is Israeli and specifically Jewish in Netanya, and here in the Sharon Valley is very Jewish. So we have to help people to really integrate. Our services are in Hebrew with translation into 2 or 3 other languages, according to the people group. We establish a broad range of home groups for people to have more personal interaction and growth together at a personal level. Great youth group, great Shabbat school program for the kids. We write our own curriculums now. Our young adults are really where my heart is at, those that have finished their army service, young men and young women, and looking for those that have a keenness and talent for various specific areas of service. And hence today, all our worship leaders in that range. We have people that are leading services, people that are preaching now from that age group. And my job ends up more training them, helping develop godly character, and then pushing them into the limelight, into the various areas. And key to that for us is mission, giving them a taste.
It seems to be it's an area where Netanya's grown rapidly in size in recent years. Have you seen similar growth in the congregation? And what do you think has been your effective tools at facilitating that growth?
Yeah, Netanya is, I think, statistically the fastest growth area in the country. With it, job opportunities, educational opportunities, and being very central to the country geographically, very helpful. We have grown, but we're somewhat limited by space. So what we have seen is numbers from the congregation move out and into other congregations that have blossomed here. We're now 5 separate Messianic communities in Netanya. A couple of them are Russian-speaking. One of them is an Amharic-speaking community. And then there's another Hebrew-speaking congregation like our own. And each one has its own unique culture, I would say, congregational culture and way of doing things. And through these things and the home groups that are established, this is what I would really see as clear growth. And really training our people to be outreaching. Now, the group that we really need to focus on is our youth and our young adults, and particularly in outreach work. First of all, they're gung-ho. They love the excitement of it and the challenge of it. And also, they're less encumbered, should I say, than a lot of the immigrant families that are just, all their energy is just going towards doing life. You know, bringing up their kids, jobs, language, social interaction. So rather than just put too much on them, what we do is train our young adults, and the young adults draw the younger ones, the pre-army age, into interacting with them, because for the youth, these young adults are kind of like young heroes, you know, and models for them. And so they love to go with them and out onto the street and
Sounds like a very diverse, exciting place to be. So you're out on the streets evangelizing in Netanya. What do you do?
A week and a half ago, on the Saturday night, the young adults, they call themselves a salt shaker, hamilchia in Hebrew. They decided to do an outreach and organized it, sent notices out, WhatsApp messages out to the rest of the congregation, particularly the youth. And down in central Netanya is a lovely walking mall. And one of the things in that mall is a piano, a working piano. And so they gathered there. We've got very talented, musically talented young people. And so they just took turns at the piano and a couple of guitars beside. So the young adults and the youth, for the most part, just started doing worship songs in Hebrew. Crowd quickly gathers, and numbers of us who said, well, we better go down and support the older set. We ended up being those that were out and amongst the crowd and just talking about our faith, just conversations. It was such a warmth and open reception to us. No objection. There were a few Orthodox that had, I guess, come from our Saturday evening closing of the Shabbat service, had walked through the mall and kind of were listening to the songs and wondering what was going on. But some stayed and others just moved on. We ended up without any resistance. And I saw one of our elderly evangelists, who's just amazing, praying and leading like 3-4 people to faith just on the street, which is pretty incredible given this context.
Very exciting. Yeah. So taking that the next step, do you run courses then? In the UK, we love the Alpha course. Do you do something similar here in Netanya?
We have used Alpha course. I think it was locally translated with permission into Hebrew, and one of our youth leaders in the past used that for doing youth work very effectively. But with the young adults, I have designed my own curriculum, and I don't work with groups. I do it one-on-one. And so I may have 2 or 3 students at any given time, and we'd have our own slot during the week. Now that means it's very intensive for me, but the results of it are just outstanding. So, and I'd work with them probably for a year to a year and a half, doing godly character building, very intensive Bible study. Those that you see have a real bent towards teaching and preaching, I would teach them skills and systematic teaching and exposition. Others who have more skills moving towards youth or in various areas, I would tailor-make it to their particular areas of gifting and preference.
You have a very exciting event coming up next summer in Germany, a young adult outreach event where you're taking groups, both Arab and Jewish Christians, into Germany. Tell us about that. That sounds really exciting.
Yeah, thanks for asking. It is it's a real passion for my wife Marla and myself. We actually have just completed or nearly completed building the 3rd team. This will be the 3rd year next year that we'll take a team out. And that team will consist of a group of Israeli Messianics, of Israeli Palestinian Christians, and we will meet up with a group, similar amount of young German Christians, and we will train in outreach work and mission work together, while at the same time looking at our context, the context of conflict that we all share in common, German-Jewish, which is a historical conflict, not so many years ago, and of course the ongoing conflict, Palestinian-Israeli conflict. And so we go out and we see ourselves as the message, and we go into areas where there are large amounts of Muslim asylum seekers, Germans gathering for music festivals, and of course the myriads of Israelis that are visiting or even working in Germany today.
So where do you see God taking you in the future? What do you think God's plan for you as a congregation and wider afield might be?
I think at my age now, I'm coming up to 65. So working with young adults is obviously, background to that is me preparing and literally handing over. So the training I'm doing, the responsibilities I give is transition. So I'll get out of their road in the next couple of years. And so to give them field experience as well. So what we've seen developing is a real heart for mission, both local and abroad, to pick up that call of being a light to the nations. I would see mission becoming a larger and larger aspect of at least this congregation's life. I believe I'm seeing it in other communities as well now around the country. And so give them whatever experience we can and of these past 30, 40 years and launch them. Our young people are starting to go out to Africa. It's not just short-term missions. One of our young women is literally, after several visits to Uganda, the mountain area there, and working with local people, taking teams of young Israelis out there. She's looking now at the next step of going in and spending a year there, in-depth language learning. She's a kindergarten teacher, and there are just countless numbers of children without parents in this particular area of the Eastern Mountains. And Amala and I will probably do another trip out to Uganda next year. So missions that's what in a nutshell. And funnily enough, the irony of it, the word mission would be something that we would never use that word, because to be coined missionaries within this Jewish context would be so inappropriate. But today I use it freely. I believe that this is what God is calling us to do.
Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Evan Thomas describing life in a vibrant congregation in Israel. The Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund is a Christian charity based in the UK that supports the needs of both Jewish believers and Arab or Palestinian Christians living in Israel and the wider Middle East. If you'd like to know more about our work through our bi-monthly newsletter, including news about our upcoming tours, please either visit our website www.olivetreefund.org or write to me, Julia Fisher, OTRF, PO Box 402, Billingshurst, RH14 4BQ in the UK. Meanwhile, join me at the same time next week for another story from the Olive Tree. Until then, goodbye.